Children are such a blessing, and irrespective of your life situation, people tend to want to provide a better life for their child than that they had for themselves. And so naturally, they try to do it from a financial perspective, whether it's parents, grandparents, relatives, close family, friends. They want to provide financial stability for their child for big life events in the future. Now, this video attempts to address some of the questions you should ask yourself before. What are different types of accounts that you can save for your child in? And what are some investment options as well as planning you should do for saving for a child? Now, there are three basic screening questions I like to ask for folks that are considering saving money for a child. Number one is, what is the goal of the money? What is your intention as the financer of this goal? Is it for college? Is it for housing? Is it for retirement? Is it just a general financing for general expenses? Those different types of goals all warrant maybe different account types or investment selections. It just depends on what your goal is. The next is time horizon. The time horizon, whether it be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 60 years, really makes a difference on what type of account you should select, as well as the investment selection itself, whether it's a higher risk or a lower risk investment. Now, on risk tolerance, this I really just want to sum up as, if you can sleep at night, if you feel comfortable with the decisions you made in the investments themselves, of the account type and investment selection, then you're going the right direction. If you're going to stay up at night, if you're going to be constantly checking your account, if it's going to cause you unneeded stress, just be comfortable. It's your money. You need to be comfortable with the decision at the end of the day. Now, there's 4 basic investment type accounts that I would recommend for children. Now, the first of that is 529 plans. 529 plans are tax advantage accounts for qualified educational expenses. So these are perfect for folks that are trying to save for college. But the thing here is they don't really have a limit on how much you can contribute to them, although there is a total dollar cap. There's no yearly contribution like you would see in like, let's say, a 401k or an IRA. On the benefit side, it is tax advantage, so you have tax savings on the contributions as well as tax savings. You don't pay any taxes on the gains. So those are 2 big pluses there. So if you're using this for college expenses, really, really great. Now, some extra things you should know about. You can use it for educational expenses. Let's say your child does not go to school. They're not going to go to any trade school or anything. They're just not going to go to school. There's no qualifying educational expenses. You can use it for non-educational expenses. You pay the taxes as ordinary income on both the contributions and the gains, plus a 10% penalty. Now, you can avoid, like, let's use another scenario. Your child gets accepted to college, your child goes to college, but they have a full ride due to scholarships or something, right? You can get all the money back up to the amount of the scholarship. So everything will be tax-free for the amount of the scholarship. So that's how you can avoid the 10% penalty. Like, if your child goes to school for free, you can definitely get the money back as long as you have scholarships dollar for dollar that match it. And so one thing here is you don't want to save too much in your 529. You really want to save what maybe a little bit less than what you think your child is going to need for school, and be fairly confident that your child's going to go to school. Otherwise, you will have to pay the 10% penalty upon withdrawal. Now, it's easy to switch beneficiaries, so you can use this for all your children. You could use this for just one child. You could use it for yourself. As long as it's used for those educational expenses, you're pretty much golden. Now, next up, you have brokerage accounts. Now, these are just taxable, non-specific to retirement, nor college, nor housing, nor anything. You can use brokerage accounts to save and invest for pretty much anything you want. There's no contribution limits. There's really no specific benefits for a brokerage. Anything that you put in is taxed. Anything you put in, it's taxed at either ordinary income if it's short term, or it's taxed at long-term capital gains if you've held it for more than 1 year on the investment. And there's really nothing special. It's a very basic account, but an overall very good account that pretty much everybody should have at least a brokerage account. Even outside of having 401ks and IRAs for retirement for their personal self, brokerages are a very powerful tool. You can use them for lots of different saving types of things. So I really like brokerage accounts. Next up, we have custodial brokerage accounts. They're essentially the same thing as a brokerage account, except they're in the child's name. You have long-term gains, which are anything over a year. You have short-term gains, taxed ordinary income. But instead, any of that stuff is paid by the child, okay? Now, the difference here is any money that you put in this account is not legally yours anymore. It is that child's, period. That's the end of the story. So if you try to withdraw money out and use it for yourself, you are breaking the law. So going back to the first question I asked on was what is the objective for this money? What is your goal? Is it for investments? Is it for school? Is it for housing? When your child turns 18, they can do whatever they want with that money. They could go off and buy a brand new car. They could go off and go on a really long vacation to wherever. They can do whatever they want with that money. You have no control over it. All you have control over is what investments it is, what investments it's invested in, whether it's invested in there or not, but it's legally not your money once you put it in there. So that to me is a little bit of a downside. I like to have control. I like to make sure that just the parenting style, whatever you want to do is up to you, but that to me is a negative. All right, next up we have custodial IRAs. Now you can either choose to do this a traditional or a Roth. Traditional means that you get the tax savings when you put the money in initially, but you pay taxes on any gains in the future. The Roth is you pay the taxes in the current year that you make the contribution, but any gains in the future you don't have to pay taxes on. Now, right off the bat, I'll go ahead and say most of the time it makes more sense if you're going to go this approach, just go with the Roth. Your child is going to be the one making the income. More than likely, they're going to be a lower income earner. Their tax bracket's going to be extremely low. Just go with a Roth. And since your child's going to be more than likely investing for 40 plus years in this type of account, it makes more sense to go with a Roth because majority of the money in that account at the end at 59.5 is going to be gains. And so there's going to be much larger portion of the pie for your child if you go the Roth route. Now, if your child's like, the one-off and it's a movie star and they're making millions of dollars, then traditional probably actually benefits you because you're actually, you get higher tax savings in the current year. Now, your contribution limit on a Roth IRA is $6,000 a year. And again, the money must be made by the child. You cannot just put money in there for your child, and the income must be earned income, meaning your child has to have money that's been filed through the IRS. So it can't be, your 16-year-old watched your younger child and you paid them $40, $50 or whatever to watch them for a couple hours. That doesn't work. It has to be something that's filed through the IRS that is attributable to that child as earned income. Now, one of the things that is really, really great about this type of account is it takes advantages of compound interest, and there is a penalty on this account. If you try to pull money out of this account, you will get penalized for it if you're not 59.5, just like a normal IRA. And then just a reminder, it must be the child's earned income. This is a great investment option if you want to invest for your child's retirement in the future, or just put money into an account that is going to be there for when your child gets to 59.5. This isn't really for college, this isn't for housing, this isn't for just general purposes unless you want general purposes way off in the future. But if it's for retirement, this would be a great option if you're wanting to do that for your child. Now, I don't think I was extremely clear. If I said if you want to do that for your child, technically it's your child actually making the investment. They made the money. So in this case, it's really just urging your child, if they're making money, to put it in the right spot. You can help guide. It doesn't actually have to always be you making the investment. You can help guide your children to make good, wise financial decisions for the future. And this number 4, custodial IRAs, is definitely good for their future. All right, so now that you've chosen your account type, now you need to make your investment selection. Now this is when the time horizon really starts to play a factor. Is it college savings? So for college saving, is it a brand new newborn? You got 20 years. Are you 2 years, your child's 16 and they're going off to college in 2 years? You need to figure out what your time horizon is and figure out how far you have to save and invest for your child. Now, if it's a short-term investment / savings, I'm making this, it's very nuanced, and so this is a very generalized recommendation of short-term versus long-term. Short-term being 1 to 5 years, and long-term being 5 or more years. Now, these are very, very broad buckets, so you probably, there's a lot of nuance here. Now, let's say you have a child going off to college in a couple of years. You may consider money markets, high yield savings, or cash. If you're a couple of years from buying a home, or your child is a couple of years from buying a home, it may just make sense to save the money in cash for your child, or give the, whatever, right? Investments may not make sense, but 4 or 5 years, I can start to see a case for index funds or mutual funds, but you have to be very confident and also have a good risk capacity as well as risk tolerance to combine with that. So I'm just being very conservative here, as if you're planning on using the money within 5 years, be conservative on how you do your investments if you're going to go that way. Now on the long-term side, you want your child to save for a house, it's over 5 years out. Your child has 20 years, you're doing one of those custodial IRAs. The longer out your investment horizon is, you can be more risky with some of your investments. I wouldn't invest in all risky assets, but you want to have a good basket of risk, so you have a decent return for what you're taking on as a risk. So things that I recommend are index funds. Generally, S&P 500 index funds are very basic, very, very low cost, and they give you the return of the market, which is averaged anywhere from 8 to 10 years over a long period of time. Now, mutual funds, very, very similar. I personally like index funds better, but mutual funds allow currently you to systematically and set up automatic savings and investments, which is good to set up that habit. Now, a more advanced thing is investing in individual stocks or investments and things that are a little bit more risky than just putting it into a basket of investments like an index or a mutual fund. Now, I really don't recommend this for folks that are not active, or you don't want to do the research for the specific investment. Always make sure you're doing the research, you're the one making the decision, and you feel comfortable with it. And it fills your time horizon, it fills your risk capacity, risk tolerance, and it's going to help you achieve your goal. At the end of the day, you have to be responsible for your investments and your decisions. Now that we've talked about your goals for the money, your time horizon, your risk tolerance, we've talked about the account types, we've talked about the investment types. Now let's start thinking about a plan and how we're going to execute on that as time goes by. So the first thing is, with your goal, you need to really make sure you have a clear purpose of the investment and know your why. Now, obviously, in this case, it's probably your child, but in most cases, in any goal, know your why behind the investment. Have a clear purpose. Next, create a systematic savings and investing plan for whatever account type and whatever investments you choose. If it's a one-time thing, if it's a reoccurring, whatever it is, make sure you're able to know what it is and then keep executing on it. Next, in executing, there's always times where you have to readjust. You have to pivot. Goals may change. Your child may not want to go to college anymore. Maybe there's some uncertainty in that and you want to switch it over to a brokerage account. Or maybe your children are really young and you have no idea what they're going to do in 20 years. Maybe you want to start with a brokerage account. And maybe as things progress, when they you start to see what they like, what their passions are, then you start to put in money into 529 for college. It's just, you never know, right? So just be prepared that things may change and you may want to adjust your plan as go by. Plan some time, maybe once a year, to look at the plan, look at your investments, and readjust if needed. Next, time changes. Maybe things happen in timing that just you didn't account for at the beginning. Maybe as your child gets closer to college age or purchasing a home or whatever it is, maybe the investments need to change because of your time horizon is now getting shorter and shorter. So for example, if your child's getting closer to college, maybe you want to switch your investments from index funds and more into bonds or into money markets or whatever it is, so those monies are less subject to volatility in the market. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing. I do videos on personal finance, investing, and stock analysis. I did this video for my good friend Brandon and Cassie. Love you guys. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for watching today's video. My name is Frank Finance. Out.